By his own words, you'll either love him or you'll hate him. Meet a Grand Strand publishing giant coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Fox 43 studio. We're focused on an amazing local individual. And individual's the word. Bill Darby. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Greg.
Thanks so much for being with us. It's taken this long to get you in.
Well, we're both busy, you know.
Oh, God. Is this the first time you've ever visited the studio?
No, I've been here a couple of times. Not on air, but just to visit, yeah.
Right, yeah. Well, out in our lobby, you know, we've got some copies of Alternatives. I think you and Donna are good to keep us up to date.
Right.
And Coast News magazines. Now, of course, I didn't mention you. You're the publisher and editor-in-chief.
No, I'm really the CEO and the publisher.
Okay.
I do act as kind of an editor-in-chief, but I do have editors that handle that.
And this is a Coast and Alternatives news magazines.
Right.
Now, how are those different, Bill? One targets a younger audience and one a little...
Well, Coast is primarily, always has been a tourist media, and Alternatives is more young professionals and goes to locals. I mean, we cover Horry, Georgetown, Brunswick County. That's our main beat. But we also belong to the Alternative Weekly Network, which is across North America. There's 186 of us with 8.6 million circulation. Creative Loafing, people would know. Village Voice in New York, that's the group we're in.
Right, is that right? Village Voice is in the Alternatives News Network.
All the, supposedly the top ones, there's about 2,000 of us in America, but they picked 186, and we were lucky enough to get picked.
What are a handful of popular spots if a viewer was from Laurinburg or Hartsville was coming in for the weekend that they could possibly pick up either Coast or Alternatives?
Well, in Coast, we're primarily in campgrounds, big motels, places where tourists congregate, whereas Alternatives tends to be in the colleges, at the banks, where locals congregate. So there are two, and they have some duplication in the copy within the publications, too.
Bill, about yourself, for viewers who may not have met you in person, are you originally from the area?
No, well, I'm a South Carolinian, which is a rarity on the beach, as you know.
Yeah.
But I am a South Carolinian.
You grew up where?
In a little town called Fort Mott. It's the only town I know in the nation, or only place that's named for a fort for a woman. Rebecca Mott. Her house was taken by the Brits, and when the revolutionaries came, she said burn it to the ground to get them out. And they said, well, don't do that. She got all this French tapestry. Anyway, they shot arrows into the roof. The Indians were with the Brits. They all came out to help put out that was war in the old days. It helped put out and save the house. So they named it Fort Mott.
Fort Mott.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Do you still have family in Fort Mott?
Not really. Got a lot of cousins and things around. And we used to own 20,000 acres of land. My great-great-grandfather was the high sheriff of that county for a number of years. And actually he's the savior of Charleston. He took his group down to Charleston and actually saved Charleston from the Brits. He fought them off of wild dunes at that time. That was, so he was a colonel in the Revolutionary War.
That's your great-great-grandfather?
Great-great-grand. It's a big obelisk of Vermont marble in Fort Mott, 30 feet tall. It says, Colonel William Old Danger Thompson, the savior of Charleston.
How exciting!
I'm trying to get him in the Hall of Fame. He's been up twice, so who knows?
Yeah. That's a great effort. Do you attend school? Did you attend college in South Carolina?
Yeah, I went to Clemson. Had a scholarship to Citadel, but I didn't think I could last down there too long. So I went to Clemson, played football, and got hurt. Luckily, the first month, because I don't think I could have done football and graduated.
Oh, God! Yeah. What'd you study?
I started out in pre-med, which I was not very good at. So I shifted to English history. I'm a history and English major.
Is that right? Well, that sure was a good entree into Coast and Alternatives.
Well, I started out at Clemson. I worked on the sports staff of the Tiger, and I was ad manager of the TAPS, which is the annual. I had my own little company, and we sold desk blotter ads for my fraternity. I was president of my fraternity. And we raised enough money to bring a displaced person from Europe for 4-year scholarship, an Estonian,
Is that?
Selling ads on blotters on everybody's desk.
You are kidding.
Yeah.
So this company you set up there was really with the noble goal of getting someone, an Estonian.
Yeah. We really, it was amazing that we could raise it, but we did it every semester, so you could raise a pretty good bit of money. And then we brought this fellow. He's now a general in the American Army.
Golly, Bill.
He's an interesting fellow.
That is fascinating. What was it like setting up a company while you were in college?
Well, that wasn't for me, of course. That was for my fraternity. I actually set up a company later because going to Clemson, kind of a closed fraternity, you might say. No fraternities, in fact, all military, and everybody had to be in their room unless you were a senior by 8:30. So we had 6,000 trapped students. So we set up a food company and went door to door and sold sandwiches, drinks, cigarettes and stuff. We made a ton of money. We averaged my partner and I averaged over $100 a night profit.
Come on,
yeah.
$100 a night?
A night. Well, we had 12 people working. We didn't work. We hired people. We gave them a commission, and they bring the money in, and we'd sit up for an hour at night counting our money. They put me out of business after about 2 months because I put the what they call the juice shop, which the athletic department ran, and you don't mess with the athletic department at Clemson. So the president called me and said, "Bill, we're going to have to close you down." Said you've ruined their business. And if I had been smarter and older, I would have made a contract with them and cut them in because I was doing 10 times the business they were doing.
You are kidding.
Because I went door to door, and you had to be a senior to go buy from them. So how many people would go down there?
Oh, yeah.
Even the seniors quit going because I would bring it to your door. So it was an interesting thing.
How exciting.
Yeah. But they put me out of business. My mom wrote a vicious letter to all the papers and presidents saying, this entrepreneurial kid trying to put himself through college, and you close him down.
So your middle initial E really stood for entrepreneur?
Well, I guess so. It's really Elliot, but that's a good point.
How exciting, Bill.
And I had a paper route. I just wanted to I told my mom, cut off all funds. I want to see if I could put myself through college.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. So she cut me off. She had to pick me back up after they closed down my little entrepreneurial business.
Shop. Golly, how exciting. Now, what brought you to the Strand, Bill? Did you come here straight from Clemson? Or?
No. I went to work for a big publisher and printer called Jacobs Press. They published a big farm magazine that covered the South, and they hired me as the ad manager. And I also sold printing for them, which was the best training I ever got, because when you're a publisher, you better know printing. And so I sold printing too. But I traveled the South, sold ads, and sold printing. And then Uncle Sam came and got me and sent me off to Texas, and then off to, actually supposed to go to Korea. But I talked him out of it and stayed in Japan. I was commanding officer of a radio-controlled airplane targets. It's a drone plane they use for target practice, so you don't want to be in it. And they use it for anti-aircraft. I flew for von Braun. We brought him over secretly from Germany, and first missiles ever tested, I was the pilot for the drone plane they shot down. It was interesting.
Now, Bill, I'm sure most of my viewers know who von Braun is, but that's not a name I'm familiar with.
Oh, that's the top missile inventor in Germany. He worked for the Nazis.
Right.
But when it was over, we were trying to get into missiles, so we secreted him away and brought him to America. They didn't even know he was here. The CIA, it's all top secret. In fact, nobody could come on the base when we were working except top secret people.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, would that be one of your more special memories from your service?
Yeah, I wasn't much for the military, even though I went to Clemson and got my being an officer, but military and I don't mix too well. But I was commanding officer. Next man over me was a colonel. There weren't but 16 of us in the whole world that had this MOS, so nobody knew what the hell we were supposed to be doing.
Wow.
So, I got away with murder.
That sounds familiar, Bill. No, I'm kidding.
That's my psyche. That's true.
My God, how exciting! Now, when you were in Japan, you said you were in Japan.
Yeah, I was stationed there for a whole year.
Were you yearning to get back to the Palmetto State?
Well, no, I love to travel, so that was really interesting to be over there and learn the culture. I lived with a Japanese family. I ate their food, had all my clothes made by my local tailor. I had my car sent over. It was an officer.
No way.
An officer, you could just live very well.
You were a king.
Yeah, I had a 3-bedroom apartment in a Japanese house, and I lived with a Japanese girl while I was there.
How exciting.
which everybody did. And I paid $15 a month for a 3-bedroom apartment and all her food.
My Lord, Bill.
It was. I mean, that's when the yen was $3.99 to the dollar. Now it's like a 1.22 to the dollar. You could give a barber, and all the barbers were women, $1, and you could spend the day in a barber's chair. They would manicure, pedicure, facial.
Oh my God,
It was
Bill.
great living. It was
That
really
sounds
great
like a
living.
great yearning to be back in Asia.
Yeah, well, I almost stayed because they had an ad. I was getting ready to get out, and they had an ad in the military paper and asking for an editor, and I applied, and I got it. But the more I thought about spending another year in Japan, my father died in the meantime, so I thought I should get back to my mom.
Mm-hmm. Now you've been back to Asia recently, haven't
Yeah,
you?
just we flew into Tokyo with Donna Steffen, the girl, my co-Vivian, as I call her, and I took her around Japan and showed her some of the spots I lived in. But we were really going to Korea. We have a connection with a digital company in there, and we are their American representatives.
My God, how exciting, Bill. What was that like being back there? Now, was that your first time back after
yeah, it had been
a number of
years
decades?
and years, yeah, and it just it's changed so much. I mean, it was so bad when we were there. We put our garbage out at night, and the next morning you could eat off the garbage dump. They took everything and used it. Even take beer cans and turn them inside out and turn them into toys.
Now that was
right in the end of the Korean War.
Is that right?
Yeah. So they were destitute. I mean, it was really a very poor country, but very innovative, and they used everything they could. But we were in Korea. We were there about a month, and we toured around, and they treated us great. Stayed 5-star hotels and private planes and limos, and so they ended up giving us gold Rolexes when we came.
Oh, come on.
Yep, right there.
Look at that.
And
The viewers can't see that, but that's my God.
But it's got a lot of potential. We hope it'll develop into a major company before long.
That would be exciting, Bill. Now, what brought you back? We're about halfway through the interview. What brought you back to South Carolina?
Well, I came back after that and went to work back for a printer, and then I decided to go to. I applied to Harvard and Wharton and actually the University of Missouri, which has one of the better journalism schools.
Oh yeah.
And they accepted me and then offered me, because of my experience before I got into the Army, an adjunct professorship. So I was going to get paid my GI Bill, a salary. I was going to make money and get my master's at the same time and teach. But I had a relapse from some bug I got in Japan and couldn't go. So I was reading the newspaper, the state paper, in the hospital bed in Orangeburg, and it said they needed an ad manager for a weekly in Conway. So I picked up the phone and called the fellow and told him my credentials. He said, "You're hired. Can you come now?" And I said, "Well, about a week." So that's how I got to Horry County. It was just a stopgap. I was going to do it for 3 months, and then in January I was heading for Missouri to get my master's.
Right. Golly, Bill.
But I got so intrigued.
You got stuck or not stuck, excuse me. I mean, you found Conway to be home.
Well, it was, I loved it. And Mrs. Burroughs took me, and of the Burroughs clan. I had a room there, actually. It was a boarder, because she fed me and everything. But,
This was in Conway.
This is in Conway, the big house where the People's Bank is now, a big 9-bedroom house at the Burroughs, the old mansion. But I ran the paper. After 3-4 weeks, the publisher worked with me, and he came by and he said, "Bill, you seem to know this business. Here are the keys. You're the general manager. Don't call me. Send money."
My God.
And so I rarely saw him, maybe once every 2 months.
Now, there's an Horry Independent now in Conway.
Yeah.
Was that?
This is the Horry Herald. It's the 3rd oldest newspaper in South Carolina, and it was pitiful. I mean, it had 1,200 subscribers, and we did $10,000 a year. When I left 2 years later, it was the biggest weekly in the state. We did over 100,000 a year, and we were 6,000 or 7,000, which we grew it.
Wow, Bill.
And so if I said I could do this for Mr. Wineset from Marion, my boss, I said I can do it for myself. So the last year I put out Coast Magazine, actually Sun Fun Along the Coast. That shows you how.
Sun Fun Along the Coast.
Is that a title or what?
Golly,
we finally
Bill.
cut it down to Coast. But we did that. I worked 50 hours a week on my magazine, 50 hours a week on the newspaper, and slept the rest of the time.
I don't know how you slept.
Well,
Golly, you had to do some other things, Bill.
Very
Jeez
little.
Louise. Well, what, I hate to ask, do you mind me sharing with the viewers what year that was?
Oh, that was 55. I moved
1955?
here in 55. The week after Hazel hit. There was no place to go but up.
But is that when you launched Coast?
Yeah, so we launched, 55, that's when we launched Coast. That's true.
Oh, Lord, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's been around a long time. It was the first publication of any kind like that on the beach. I'd seen it in Japan, This Week in Tokyo, and in L.A., other cities I traveled to. I said, well, this beach has a potential, and tourists and travelers need a magazine to tell them what's going on.
Right.
So, and the boroughs actually assisted me. They bought the center spread of the magazine, and that got me on my way.
And this was a weekly, Bill?
It was a weekly. Yeah.
And it was 52 weeks, or were you?
Oh, no. At that time, the first year we published 13 weeks. We started on July the 4th.
Right.
Which is a terrible time.
Right.
And so but the next year we went up to 26 weeks, and then 39 weeks, and eventually did it year-round.
Is that right? Now, give me a sense. I'm fascinated with what Coast was like. This is almost 5 decades ago, but let's say in 1965.
Oh, well, it was, starting out, it was pitiful. I really was. Two-color. It was slick. We started out with like 28 pages, I think. And our peak was in the 70s and early 80s. We got up to over 200 pages a week. Every week.
Whoa. You said in the 70s and 80s, over 200 pages a week?
Every week. Slick, full color. I mean,
what was in there? What were the 200 pages?
Well, it was, we do a 50-50 book. Half of ours is advertising, the other half was editorial. And, of course, we could change it like we do today. We still change it all the time. But for 7 years, we were the biggest magazine in number of pages only now in America. We just it was like I got elected into the Magazine Publishers of America, and then subsequent to that I got elected into the FIPP, which is out of Paris, the Federation International of the Periodical Press. So why they did it, I mean, I was the smallest. We were the first small magazine they'd ever taken, and I was the 99th member in 50 years that they took in.
That is amazing, Bill. Well, that's a history that I wasn't familiar that Coast had grown was that large.
Oh yeah, it was big, and of course there must be 30 competitors out there today.
Right.
Yeah, and everybody seems to do well. This is one of the best advertising markets, as you well know, Greg. I talked to the state the other day. I was on the state tourist board for 5 years, so I do get information from them. They said Horry, Georgetown, and Brunswick, our main distribution area, it does about $3 billion a year in advertising, and 2/3 is out of market, 1/3 in market. So that helped me when I joined the Alternative Weekly Network. I can give you local coverage, regional, national, or international coverage through my affiliation.
Golly, Bill. Now, and Coast, of course, is still in play.
Yep.
It changed dramatically. It's now
now a tabloid. It's what we call a quarter-fold tabloid.
Right.
We buy a very high grade of newsprint, so we still get great color. We run 80% either full color or spot color in that, and the same with alternatives.
So many amazing folks have come through and worked for you in the past for the many years that Coast was in a weekly format. I think about names. Tamara Valerie Graham's coming in. Of course, I think she'd been with you at one point. Steve Wilson. Golly, some of the names even now that come up. You've had a heck of a lot of folks on the strand that one way or another, I think it was Clark Parker was telling me that he'd done some distribution for you early on. I mean, in
fact, I gave Clark his to go to college. I designed a deal for him so he could get it, and they said, well, if you give it to him direct, Bill, it's not deductible. Said you have to make it. So I designed the deal so I actually explained who Clark was without using his name, and there was the only person that was 5'8", red hair, and from Aner. So nobody could apply for it but him, so that's how I got around it.
No.
But he started off that way. Yeah, we won a number of awards with Mona and all of our top editors. Valerie was on board. We won 43 press awards, and first year we won Best Newspaper in Town, and the second year they changed the rules and made me a magazine, it said I was, so we won Best Magazine that year. So we've had some great successes, but we've had great staff, too.
Oh, yeah. Now, what was that like on a weekly basis, Bill, having to churn out 100 pages of editorials?
Yeah.
I mean, of editorial piece and 100 pages.
Well, I had about 29 employees, but I had 5 other corporations beside that corporation. So some of those worked in analogous. We put the first reservation service on the beach called Reservees, and the first year we did 7 figures.
No.
Yeah, so it was very popular.
What was Reservees?
It just, we had a lot of people calling in because the magazine was so prevalent and asking, could we help? So I just turned the secretary loose and said, help them. And before I knew it, there was 2 secretaries helping them, and then there was 3 secretaries helping them, and I said, I can't keep this up, and I kept charging the customer to place a reservation. But eventually I just turned it into a regular travel agency, and I say we did a lot of business with that company. We had 8 watch lines. We were the first people, one of the first on the beach to have watch lines.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, what were some of the other companies? You said 5 or 6 companies?
Well, I owned the Hertz agencies for the whole PD, rent-a-car. We had, let's see, God, I had a real estate company that was quite successful. And we had distribution company. We put out a special resort packs bag full of goodies. We went to condos with that. And it delivered about 500,000 little bags of every year. So we were in a lot of different businesses.
And I think I saw on one of the old coasts you had a spectacular Beauty on the Beach.
Yeah, we started off pretty early with that. We figured it was a beach resort and we should use, we used local models to start with, but that just didn't work out as well as we thought. We had some mothers call up and say, why is my daughter on there? So I usually use international models now.
Right, yes. And you're absolutely, you're still doing that. That's right.
That's one of my popular features.
Is that how you met Donna?
No, Donna, we met, I went to a party together,
right.
Not actually separately.
Yeah.
And so I used that ploy,
right.
Say, Donna, you've been a model. And she said, well, yeah. And I said, well, how about modeling for me? And from that, we became great friends.
How exciting. How exciting. When we think about, golly, I was looking at a recent alternatives, and there were a list, someone put together some catchy questions, and it made me think about so many of the aspects of your life, Bill, and how the publications progressed. But you've been involved in a lot of things separate from those 5 or 6 companies, active in the Republican Party here in Horry County.
Yeah. I guess we used to meet in the phone booth over in Conway, about 6 of us, and we got the party started. And I ended up as a state committeeman for 12 years. I went to 5 national conventions and worked for the president. I was his agent during that 72 election, and it was the first time Horry County had been, I think, Democratic for 107 years, and we turned it 70% Republican.
No.
Got an invitation, my co-chairman and I, to the White House on that one.
Nixon pulled 70% of the vote out of Horry County?
Sure did.
In 72?
It was amazing.
That sure helped Ed Young then.
Yeah, Ed Young, we worked hard for him. I've worked on most of the campaigns that have come through here. And Governor Edwards, we got him elected first Republican governor in, I don't know how many, over 100 years, and he appointed me to the tourist board.
Right.
I served 5 years on that. And then Napier, who we got elected to Congress, he appointed me I was head of the Congressional Tourist Board. So I served on a lot of Travel South boards and things.
What's that like, being a big Republican, but at the same time knowing you have to keep some level of objectivity with your paper and covering candidates of both sides?
Yeah.
How do you go about doing that?
When I put my publisher hat on, it's neutral.
Right.
Because I work with a lot of great Democrats and
Sure.
independents, and we try to be neutral when it comes to that. When I get in the voting booth, it may be a little different, but I've got a lot of great friends that are Democrats. They advertise with me, we promote them. Politics should be that way in my mind.
Bill, we got about 3 minutes, and I know last Monday an amazing guy was here in town. Speaking of keeping a neutral hat on, John Casarda, a very neutral guy, was in town, and since this is not a point-counterpoint show, could you just give an idea, just in a couple of minutes, that's one thing you were very involved with a number of years ago.
Yeah, well, I set up the Air Service Task Force back in the early 80s, I guess, and we've been working to try to get a regional airport built here. The airport we got is quite adequate for the moment, but we've outgrown it. They only have a footprint of about 900 acres, and for regional airports you need a minimum of 3,000. So back in the 80s, I actually got the land from International Paper at $1,000 an acre. That was a gift, and we had Oppenheimer said they would build it and run it, and in 12 years it would make so much money that we wouldn't have to pay for it, and it would pay for itself. But that got shot down by county council, so I'm still in that fight. But Mr. John Casada just wrote the lead article in USA Today just a few weeks ago, and that's how I got up with him and invited him here. He's building a $4 billion airport in Bangkok.
Wow.
And while he was there, the heads of 17 of the countries, Putin, Fox, Bush, met. They asked him to come and give them a 1-hour seminar. So that's the level this man's at. He's at UNC Chapel Hill.
Right.
And he did a 4-hour seminar this last Monday.
You've had some very strong opinions about that, and I think in that context, Bill, someone had said you either love Bill Darby or you hate him. I mean, those are real strong words, and I thought, how could anyone listen?
That's my quote. Yeah. Well, I'm just, I have very strong opinions, and I do, and of course, when people have buy their ink by the barrel, you've got a place to really preach what you believe in. I try not to abuse it because I do counterpoint in my paper, where people can put their adverse opinions in there. But as a whole, I try to stay neutral when I'm in the publishing business, at least.
One of our great friends, Hilda Merritt Carter, has been with you for a number of years.
Sure has.
The Society columnist there, and you give her she's got a 2 full-page spread there. That's probably really rare.
Yeah, it is. But Hilda gets around. I mean, she knows everybody. Everybody knows her. The governor gave her one of the highest awards. I mean, she's an icon on the beach. There's no doubt about it.
She is. Speaking of icons, Bill, who inspires Bill Darby? Does anyone or anything in particular?
No, I just admire some of the publishers that I've met in this deal, that I've traveled around the world, played tennis with them, and so I got to know a lot of the top editors in the world, even though I was the smallest one there. I was a pretty good tennis player, so everybody wanted to play with me, so that's how I got to meet them. It wasn't so much that my magazine attracted them, but my tennis prowess, I guess. I owned a club at that time, so I got pretty good.
He and his fraternity and a couple folks set up a company years ago while in college, and the president of the university had to shut it down, that William E. Darby. It's a scary force there on the Clemson campus. He maintains an amazing presence here on the Strand, and I hope you're able to spend the last 30 minutes learning a little bit about him. Bill, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Greg.
This morning.
Sure.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank William Entrepreneur Darby, Bill Darby as he's known, the winner of 43 Grand Strand Press Awards with Coast Magazine, an amazing area recognized citizen, for making today's Carolina People so special.